Hello photography fans, welcome to another episode about classic cameras and classic photo gear. In today's episode, we're not going to be discussing a photographic camera. Well, we are, indirectly. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a film camera. Wait, isn't it a film camera same as photo camera? Yeah, it's a different film camera, movie camera. We're going to be discussing this little beauty. This is a Revere Model 88. Revere Model 88 comes from American photographic company, Revere. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The company was originally founded in 1920s as a automobile radiator company, and they started making cameras later. The company was eventually bought out by 3M, well-known 3M, in 1960s. I got this camera off of the well-known auction site for grand total of $4. It's in working condition. It works, I guess, just as well as it did the day it was introduced, but it had only one problem. The little eyepiece was missing. So I went to my local camera store, tried to find an eyepiece, and I found similar camera that I bought for $1.50. I negotiated this little eyepiece here that I hold in my hand, but unfortunately it doesn't fit very well. So it just kind of stays there, but it doesn't screw in the way it's supposed to. Well, without further ado, let's take a closer look at this beautiful 8mm movie camera. So here it is, Revere 8mm Model 88. What we would call video camera. This camera, although it may seem very simple and ancient from our perspective, actually has some features that I believe were state-of-the-art back then for personal video cameras. I'm not an expert on these things. I just happened to buy it because it looked very interesting, and for the price, $4, you just can't beat that. Back then, features on this camera were probably state-of-the-art. I don't know, I'm not expert on these things, but I happened to buy it because for $4, and you just couldn't beat this deal on this very cool, very well made camera. So let's talk about features. First of all, you see this big winding knob here. Well, actually this is a winding knob. You wind the internal springs, which later drive the whole camera. Next thing here you have is your knob here. Let me zoom in. And this here is the speed. Okay, so you can select the speed at which the film is recorded. So you go from 8 frames per second, 12 frames per second, 16, 24, and 32 frames per second. Over here you have your counter. Okay, it tells you how many feet have elapsed in the camera. So you just reset it back to 0 when you load the fresh spool. This little guy here is the trigger. It's a shutter trigger. So what happens is once you wind the film, or once you wind the springs, you just pull it towards you, and beauty happens. This beautiful noise lets you know that the film is being ran and recorded. Alright, let's take a look at the lens. The lens is the Revere 12.5mm lens. it gives you about perspective of 50mm lens. And this is the viewing lens. This is the taking lens, which is also 12.5mm. And let me zoom in. And here you have an exposure guide. Okay, so if you look to it, you see very dull day, dull, cloudy, hazy, sunlight, bright, and brilliant. Okay, and these correspond with certain settings. So f2.5, f3.5, f4, f5.6, and typical apertures. And same thing is on the lens. So basically what you do, you just decide what weather condition is outside, and you just select the aperture on the lens itself, and that should give you proper exposure. On the back of the camera, or on the side of the camera, you have another exposure guide, and this is also a nameplate with the model number, type of film to use, which is 888, and you have the exposure guide, so it tells you what kind of subject it is that you're recording and what kind of weather conditions they are and whether it's winter or summer. So you just go by that. Now this little guy here is a lock. So in order to open the camera, you just move this up and the camera opens up. And you can see this is your taking spool. This is your fresh spool you put over here. This here is your shutter mechanism. So basically what happens inside, once you push the shutter release, the whole mechanism works, pulls the film, runs it through this piece here where the shutter is at, and then just pulls it onto this spool from the fresh spool. Then you just remove it, and there you have it. Let's talk about the eyepiece. So as you can see here, the camera is missing the original viewfinder eyepiece. I happened to find a similar one from a camera at my local camera store. The owner there wasn't too happy, but we were able to negotiate $1.50 deal for this thing. But unfortunately, since I didn't have my camera with me, I wasn't able to check. I mean, it looks that it's supposed to be from this camera, but the threading is not the same. So it just kind of pops in there, but it doesn't screw in like it should. But it works. Maybe one day I'll just dilly bob or something, and I'll make this thing work. Anyways, let's talk about changing the frame speed. So this is your 8 frames per second right now, and this is how fast the camera runs. You can hear the difference in speed. Alright, now I'm going to change it to 12 frames per second. You can hear the difference. Let me go to 24 frames per second. Alright, you can hear the difference. Let me wind it again. And now I'm gonna go to crazy 32 frames per second. If you really think about it, 60 frames per second is probably what digital high definition cameras run right now. So 32 is about half. So it's just pretty good. It's very fluid motion picture. So here it is. That is some speed. And let me wind it again, and you can see. Hello, Eyepiece. Let me wind it again, and you can see the frame counter. Let me zoom in. You can see the frame counter moving. So right now it's at 5 feet. That is one fast camera. I also came with this original linear string on the swivel connector, which I think is really cool. Didn't come with a case, didn't come with any other accessories, but nevertheless, for that kind of money, I got this beautiful camera. I will probably not use it. I was never into 8mm. Maybe one day, maybe one day I'll run a film through it, but it's not gonna be in the near future. I have other projects I wanna do. So this is just a back burner time killer, maybe one day. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this short overview of Revere 88 from 1940s. Stay tuned for more videos. Stay tuned for more cameras. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching. Remember, keep the film alive.